Happy New Year to everyone. Glad you're back here in the workshop with me. And what I've got on the table today is I've got my Ovation, tilt this up here so you can see it, my Ovation guitar. This is a Spalted maple top. It is a Celebrity CE44P for anybody that's interested, but it's the Spalted maple version. Now, if you know anything about Ovation guitars, they have the fiberglass back and side, kind of the bowl-shaped guitar. And listen, I bought this guitar back in, I believe it was the beginning of September 2014 is when I got this guitar. And I love the sound of this guitar. I love the look of the guitar. It's got abalone inlay all along the side of the guitar. It actually has the abalone dots as opposed to just the white pearloid dots. It's just a really sharp looking guitar, and it sounds great. It does. Through my I have an acoustic pedal, an acoustic amp that I use to play when I play live, and man, this guitar sounds great through that setup, and I love this. But I've discovered a problem that is beginning to happen with the guitar, and I want to explain it to you. And I haven't fully decided what I'm going to do to try to correct the problem, but there is an issue, and it seems to be inherent to a lot of Ovation guitars, especially older Ovation guitars. This one is not old at all. It's barely 3 years old. Again, this is the first day of 2018. I bought this September 4th or something like that back in 2014, so not very old at all. But let me explain to you some of the issues, and I'm gonna actually probably pop the camera off the tripod there and let you see inside the guitar a little bit, because it is a little bit different setup with the Ovation as opposed to some of the other guitars. But here's what's going on. Ovation uses a different bridge type than some of the other guitars. If the Taylor video that I posted, where I did the setup and put the new saddle, all that stuff, has the bridge pins that go down through the top of the guitar. This guitar doesn't have that. The strings go in from the back, and I'm going to take a quick look at the camera here. Again, I'm using kind of a new setup, so I'm not exactly sure what is in the video and what's not. I want you to be able to see the rear part of this bridge here. Okay, I readjusted the camera so you can see what's going on here. With the Ovation guitars, the strings go in through the back of the bridge here and come through these open slots and then up through. So there's no holes down through the top of the guitar where you can put in bridge pins. You can't put standard bridge pins because there aren't holes. Now, the problem is, and I need to find a little small piece of paper, and I'm just going to use this old package for the guitar strings that came in, and I'm going to show you, because this is under string tension now. It's pretty close to being tuned to pitch, so it's normal string tension. And I've read different numbers and all of that, but somewhere I read somewhere around 80 foot-pounds of pressure per string is put on the top of the guitar. And again, that's just something that I read. Whether I haven't done a lot of research to find out if that's accurate or not, but that's the pressure that's put on the top of the guitar. And what I'm doing is checking, and I'm going to pop the camera, I think, off of here just a little bit so you can see what's going on. The bridge is actually starting to pull away from the top on this guitar. It's worse on the, which kind of makes sense because the thicker strings pull more than the lighter strings, but I've got lift on the, not too much, there's a tad bit on the high side, but as we go across, the back is actually pretty solid. I know you can't see that. I'm going to put this under here, and then as I come around to the side, the paper actually fits under there quite a bit. So bear with me. I'm going to grab the camera off the tripod here, and then I'm going to bring you around so you can see this, kind of give you an overhead view of this. So bear with me for a second. So here's the overhead view. As you can see, this paper slides up under the edge of the bridge here, which means this is the bridge is starting to pull away from the top of the guitar. And I wanted you to see this. What I'm going to do is actually take, and I'm holding the camera here, so apologies if I bounce you around too much, but what I'm going to do is, I've got that paper up under there. I'm going to take a pencil and I'm just going to mark around here like that. And when I pull this out, you'll see, bring this up to you here, you can see how far that piece of paper has gone back up under the bridge. So you can see there, it's a fairly significant amount. Now let me put you back on the tripod. I'll explain to you. Well, before I do that, a little bit of change of a plan here. You can see, let me zoom you in a little bit. There we go. You can see these little inlays that are made to look like the same wood that the bridge is made out of. There's actually 2 screws that go through the bridge, one under each of these inlays, down through the top. And I'm going to flip the guitar over and take the little plate off the back, and I'll show you these bolts that go through. And again, I'm just kind of thinking here about a solution to this issue, and I haven't fully decided yet, but let me kind of explain. There's multiple things going on here. As I've showed you, we've got that much paper going underneath the bridge, and there's a reason, multiple reasons for that. But let me put the camera back on the tripod, and then I'll be back with you and explain what's going on. And so we've got some fairly significant lifting going on, and that has caused a problem. And these 2 screws that are going down through here, I just explained that to you, is part of the issue. And let me show you. I'm going to do a comparison here real quick. I've got a ruler, and if I lay the ruler on the top of this guitar right behind the bridge, and I'm going maybe an inch behind the bridge here, you can see how much there is a huge bulge in the top of the guitar right here. So you can see that. Now, acoustic guitars, and you probably heard people refer to them as flat top guitars from time to time. Every acoustic guitar has some angle. They're not completely flat. There's some, when they're made, there's some radius to the top and the back. So again, let me show you this. I'm going to compare. I'm going to pull the Taylor guitar that I just did all the work on. Then hopefully you've watched that video. If not, you can go take a look at that, where we did some work on that one. But you can see the deflection there, which the huge bulge here, and how much I've got the ruler flat against the side of the guitar hitting here, and how much space there is. I mean, I can get the end of my pinky underneath that. Let me grab, for a comparison, I'm going to set this guitar, set that guitar off to the side. I'm going to grab another guitar, and this one is again the Taylor that did some work on, and it has traditional bridge with the pins that go down through the top. And I'm going to do the same thing. So ruler about an inch behind the bridge, and we have a little space but very, very minimal. I would consider this to be very, very flat. So hopefully you can see that difference. I'm hoping that shows up on the camera. I've done the same thing. Put the ruler up against the side of the guitar here. It's going across the middle, and there's very, very little lift over on the other side. There is a little bit, again, because the entire top of the guitar is made to have a radius. And I'd have to look at the specs to see exactly what that radius is, but all guitars have that to some extent. But the Ovation is really bad. So let me bring it back here. Bring it back here, and I'll show you that once again. Side of the guitar across, and you can see huge amount, which means there's a huge bulge in the center of this top. And I'm going to flip this over, and again I'm just going to make sure I got you in the camera here. Again, all this new setup and all, I want to make sure it's working correct. Oh yeah, we got you in here pretty well, so you're going to be able to see this. I'm going to flip the guitar, and you can see the rounded, it's a fiberglass back, and has this access. As you notice, there's no sound hole. It has this decorative, and I love the look of this guitar, I really do. It has this decorative pieces here with these holes in it, so it doesn't have the traditional sound hole. So what they've done is provided this access panel. So I'm going to grab a screwdriver and just unscrew this. Pop this panel off here so we can see inside the guitar. So that's all there is to that. Set that off to the side. See if you can see that a little bit. You can see just the bottom. Let me grab something to point with here. There's the X bracing. That's the bridge plate. Again, no screws or no holes for bridge pins, right? But there is a bridge plate. Here are those two screws that I was telling you about that go down through the back of the bridge, and I guess they thought that would be a better way to, or a good way to help, since it didn't have the strings coming through and with the bridge pins and all that to help hold the bridge down on the top of the guitar. They put those two little screws in there. Problem is, where that big bulge is on the top of the guitar is right behind where these two screws, and again I apologize for bouncing you around too much. I'm got the camera mobile here. Let me kind of point here without getting too much in the way. That bulge is here, so that's the top of the guitar, and so what's happening is the bridge is pulling away, but those screws with those nuts on there are holding tight, so it is pulling the entire top of the guitar. Now, if that's not corrected, if I leave this the way it is, that's going to crack the top of my guitar. So I'm going to put you back on the tripod here, get you back in the frame, and then I'm going to explain to you what I'm thinking as far as what I'm going to do about all of this. So be right back with you. As you can see, I flipped the guitar back around. I haven't put the plate back on yet, because I haven't decided how much of this I'm actually going to try to delve into right now. But what I'm thinking about doing is I'm thinking about taking out these two inlays here. So I've got an inlay here and an inlay here, and I'm not sure if you can see them from there. I showed you earlier in the video, and I would have to drill these out because they made these to look, the same color, and they've been probably stained and finished or whatever to match the bridge. So I've got here and here we have two inlays that are in here that are covering up the tops of those screws. So what I'm thinking about doing is taking my drill, these are like barely like around 6 millimeter, a little bit bigger than that, 6 millimeter inlays, and what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to drill those out, take those screws out. Once the strings are off, I'm going to clamp board or something across here and probably leave it for quite a while to try to flatten this top of the guitar. I'll put some a cloth or a t-shirt or something across here to protect the finish, and then I'll lay, I've done this with some other guitars that had similar thing where the bridge pulls up and it kind of makes this bulge in the top of the guitar, and I want to try to flatten this bulge in the top. This, they call it belly, but it's significant again on this guitar. One more time, I'll show it to you. It is really, really significant. What I'm thinking about doing is just clamping something across here. I can take just a piece of wood, something that spanned this area, and pull this back. Now it's going to be an interesting dilemma because I don't have the back of the guitar is not flat. It's got this bowl shape to it, and so getting something to clamp across here is going to be a bit of a challenge, but I think that's what I'm going to do here. I had a couple of things that I wanted to try to do to this guitar anyway to help improve and upgrade it a little bit. The saddle and nut on this guitar are both plastic, ABS plastic, and I was going to swap that out with either bone or tusk, and I need to address this other issue. I started just doing some examining of the guitar, and it's just a significant issue that if I don't take some action right now, and if those screws stay in here, what's going to happen? This is going to keep pulling and pulling and pulling. And I've explained this before, I think, in some other videos, and I'm not sure I don't have a bridge. I wish I had just a blank bridge that I could show you what's going on, but maybe I'll grab a picture and I'll overlay a picture in this video so you can see what I'm talking about. But what happens, and I almost guarantee I probably bet lunch on what's going on, is around the edge of this bridge, probably about a 1/8 of an inch or so, all around, especially on the back side, there's finish, the guitar finish, underneath this bridge. So when it got glued on, it wasn't wood, the bottom wood of the bridge, in 100% contact with the wood of the top of the guitar. And so if this were to come off, if I were to take the drastic, and I haven't decided if I'm going to take the bridge off and re-glue it. You know, I have to think about that again. Without a traditional sound hole, clamping this back on and getting good clamping pressure to re-glue this is a really big problem. So I'd have to really give that some thought before I pop this bridge off of here. But it's already starting to lift. Again, that's a significant amount. That, and again, it's about the amount, if you look, where, because glue doesn't stick to lacquer, the wood glue will not stick to it. So what's happened is, and again, if I were a betting person, you have this much of a gap, about 1/8 of an inch or so, all the way around, where, and this back part of the bridge, this is the most crucial spot to actually have it glued to the top. And for some reason, all of these manufacturers, they don't take the time to score around here and get a good clean finish and fit for the bridge, and I don't know why, but It's notorious. It doesn't matter. It doesn't seem to matter the manufacturer of guitar or anything like that. It's a problem because they don't take the time. It's like they just run glue and stick it on here, and again, if it anyway, I could rant about that. I'm not sure it's going to change the manufacturing process because there's lots of people ranting about it. But that's part of the issue. You have this back part where all of the pressure is applied, especially on this guitar, because there's nothing going down through the top as far as the strings, with bridge pins going down through the top. Now that would be another option, is I could remove this bridge altogether and put a traditional, since we do have X bracing and a bridge plate and traditional elements on the top of this guitar. Some of the older Ovations didn't have. It just had what they called fan bracing, where the bracing just went down like this and the bridge was just glued to the top and there was no bridge plate. So with this guitar having a bridge plate, I could remove this entirely, flatten down the top, drill holes, and put a traditional bridge in here with bridge pins, and I could get something that matched very nicely and all of that. So that's an option. Again, I'm just thinking out loud here because I haven't decided 100% how I'm going to handle this. I think I've pretty well decided that I'm going to get rid of these screws for sure, drill out these inlays, and then get those screws out of there to relieve at least that part of the pressure on the top, so that what happens is, and I've seen it on a lot of Ovation guitars, and what'll happen is when this decides to pull away, that one or the other or both spots where these screws are, it will crack the top of the guitar and crack the finish, and then that becomes a much more difficult repair. It's not that it can't be fixed. It can be fixed and covered up fairly well, but if I can avoid that, I think that's what I'm going to try and do. So I'm going to, at a minimum at this point, I'm going to drill out these two inlays. I've got, see if I can hold one of these up here so you can see it. I've got these inlays that are abalone, and there's abalone all around the edge and stuff, so these will match really nicely, and they're the same size inlays. So I could drill those out, take the screws out, and then put these inlays back in, and just keep an eye over time on, I could put a little bit lighter gauge string on here. So I think these are 12s, which would be considered in acoustic world, 12s are a light gauge. I could go with like a custom light or an extra light, which would be like an 11, and that would help with not so much pull on the top of the guitar. The problem is when you do that, it changes the tone a little bit as you go down in gauge. So if I did that, I would have to check and see if I really liked the sound of the guitar. The other option is to try to figure out, okay, if I decide to pull the bridge off and either replace it with something more traditional with bridge pins, or just re-glue this one to fix the issue and score around. What I would do is take a thin X-Acto blade, score around this, take this bridge off, have to put some heat on here, loosen the glue underneath, take it off, and then clean all around so that we have wood to wood contact 100% and re-glue this. The problem with that solution there, which is more than likely what needs to be done, so I'll have to give it a lot of thought, is I don't have any way to apply. I need to be able to put pressure here and here when I re-glue, and I don't really have a good way to put clamping pressure on the bridge to re-glue it to the top. This is problematic, and it's going to be an issue if I wait and do nothing about it. It's going to cause even more damage. So I need to address it, at least I think at a minimum at this point. Getting these screws out of here, put the inlay, cover the holes back up, use the abalone dots. I've got some of those, so we can throw those on there to cover up where the screws come out, like that. And then clamp across here, of course with the strings off. Take the strings off for all of this, get them out of the way, and then clamp, figure out how to clamp a straight board across the top of the guitar. We just grab a piece of wood here. This is just like a 3/4 inch piece of plywood, and of course it would have to be longer, but what I'm thinking is clamp a board here. Of course I would protect the top of the guitar, the finish, but I need to clamp right here and put pressure to flatten out this top, because you can see how much deflection there is. Because see, I got a little bit of a dilemma here. You know, what am I going to do with my guitar? Because I really like this guitar, and I want to keep it playable and be able to use it in the rotation. Especially, I love the sound of this guitar live through my acoustic pedal and amp, and it sounds really, really good. So I have to figure out what I'm going to do here. At a minimum, I'm going to do this, and I may bring you back in, and when I get all set up to do that, and have some exciting TV for you, and drilling out these inlays and getting those screws out. So I think that's going to be my first step on this guitar, and what I'm going to do is, at least in keeping the damage from getting any worse, is I'm going to get rid, I think for sure I'm going to get rid of these 2 screws here, and then clamp this and try to flatten this out. So that's my plan of attack for right now. And again, I'm not sure how much of this I'll show in video and all of that, but first step, I'm going to get these strings off of here. I'll get the drill set up. I need about a 6mm drill bit to get down through here, and then we'll take these screws out. So I'll probably film some of that for you just so you can see that process. So I'm going to pause the camera right now, get all set up, get the strings off, and then I'll bring you back in as I take the next step.